This has been one of the most hotly contested issues recently that I've heard of in the Second Amendment space, and I have very, very strong opinions on this matter. So today, we're going to be talking about, is Pam Bondi actually good on the Second Amendment? If you are new here though, please do subscribe down below. Brand new channel, so I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any feedback or any sort of comments on this, please do drop them down below. Alright, so here's basically how it's going to work. I'm going to start bad and go good. Just to give you kind of a brief kind of spoiler alert, my answer is going to be kind of mixed. She's very, very good in some ways, and she has some serious problem in others. So I'm going to play this at first. This is the hate speech clip that's been going around. This is yikes. And anyway, here it is. Just going to play it right for you.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society. We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything, and that's across the aisle.
Obviously, this isn't Second Amendment related, but it's pretty important. 1A and 2A do cross a lot of paths with each other, and the First Amendment does absolutely protect hate speech. She kind of should know that, and she really shouldn't say this sort of thing. She did clarify it later on Twitter, and I understand that, but this is unbelievably unacceptable. I'm not going to defend it. There are no defenses for me. I'm just going to be fair again on this video, so I had to get that out the way first. But let's talk a little bit about her past, and then we're going to get into what she's done in Attorney General. So I think a lot of the past things are what people are more hung up about, and there are some yikes parts. So the first kind of big one is that she did support the 18 to 20-year-old gun bans down in Florida. Now, obviously, it does say the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And last time I checked, 18 to 20-year-olds are in the people. And we know that, right? 18 to 20-year-olds can be drawn for military service. There's a whole host of other rights that, they can vote. There's a ton of things they can do there. And it's pretty clear that 18 to 20-year-olds are in the people. You can be tried obviously as an adult and many other things like that. And at the time of the founding, there was not really a precedent for this type of gun ban. In fact, quite the opposite. You had compelled carry, where people that were 18 and older had to carry a firearm, right? Especially, due to the risk of Indian attacks and militia duty and that kind of thing. So that's completely against her negative scorecard right there. She also supported open carry bans. Now, this is a very, very interesting one. So while she was Attorney General of Florida, she supported various forms of open carry bans. Again, that's pretty indefensible. Currently, of course, you're allowed to either ban concealed carry or open carry. In my opinion, that's wrong. There's a number of reasons why I don't think we should fight that right now. But open carry is clearly a constitutionally protected right. There's not that much doubt about that. And she very, very publicly supported open carry bans. Again, another mark against her. Those two are arguable, right? Because you could say 18 to 20-year-olds, we don't let them drink, so, maybe they're not fully part of the people. Open carry bans, we let you conceal carry. You can make that kind of argument, right? But this is a tough one. The next one I'm about to talk about, and I think this is probably the biggest mark against her. She campaigned for and was absolutely for red flag laws. For those of you who don't know, red flag laws are basically where a court, without due process, without you even knowing, can come, take all your firearms. You can't appeal it. There's not really a system for that. And they can come, just take all your firearms. You don't have a right to face your accuser. You don't have any of these forms of due process. They can just deprive you of your rights just like that without really much recourse, at least until it's actually happened. That's really bad. Okay, let's just be clear. That is really bad. And if you're, hating on Pam Bondi for that, I've got no arguments for you. But I guess this video, and I want to kind of do this more broadly, but I guess this video really is examining her as Attorney General. That's what she is right now, and that's really the record I'm trying to focus on. So let me be clear. In the past, has she been anti-Second Amendment? Yeah, she has. And there's not really that much argument for it. And has she shown some flakiness on other issues? Yep, she has. And that's been very clear too. And by the way, the Gunners of America, which is an organization I'm very fond of, very proud of, that's why they didn't support her in the initial campaigning phase and our initial confirmation phase for things like this. And it's very, very clear. Now, I guess this kind of brings me into kind of how we should think about Pam Bondi. Gunners of America is absolutely right. She is not a ostensibly pro-Second Amendment person. No doubt about that. No argument. It's hard to make the case that I'm wrong on that, right? If you look at her, look at her record, look at her rhetoric, it's very clear. Over the course of her life, she's not a principled Second Amendment advocate. But what Pam Bondi is more, is she's like an attack dog, right? She's like the muscle. Competent lawyer. You kind of just set her on an issue, and she's relatively conservative leaning. There's no doubt about that. You set her on an issue, and she fights for that. And so in previous cases, this is what she was told to fight for. And I think the way we need to think of her is more of a tool than as a sort of agent. She's been shown to be, and we're about to get to it, as Attorney General, have that pro to a bend. And a lot of that's because of Trump. Now, a lot of people do have frustrations with Trump, and I'm not going to really bring this in this video. But it's very clear a lot of people within his administration, and to a large degree him himself, are quite principled 2A supporters. You can argue that with me in the comments below, but I have a hard time disagreeing with that. A lot of people bring up the bump stock ban. Again, this is not the topic of this video, but the bump stock ban, of course, that he undeniably did. I'm not going to argue with you on that. Obviously, that's for a number of reasons a violation. That is an arm. But that had a purpose, right? It was to stop Congress passing a law against that, and then that ended up getting struck down later on as sort of an executive overreach, right? And so to a large degree, that's kind of a 4D chess move, right? The bump stock ban helped the Second Amendment. It helped us prevent a bump stock ban. I know that's kind of counterintuitive. Not the point of this video. I'm not going to try and prove that to you now. But for a number of reasons, I actually don't count that against Trump. But there are legitimate reasons to criticize him. But I think on the whole, he's been a very pro-2A president. So now let's look at her, right? In her office, does she keep those anti-2A leanings, or is she a little bit more centrist, or at least a little bit better on the Second Amendment? Okay, so some statements she's made. She said, right, 2A is not a second-class right. Now, again, statements are one thing, and we're going to get to actions she actually did. I think you guys can be a little happier on that. But she has said, ostensibly, 2A is not a second-class right. That's great. And she did create the Second Amendment Task Force. They were obviously probably directed by Trump, but she did do that, and can't count that against her either. Okay, now we get to the policy changes. And this gets good. This gets seriously, seriously good. And so here's really the big one, and we're going to kind of get... there's really two big ones. And then there's the really, really mellow load of them all, and we're going to get to that later. But, okay, she repealed the zero tolerance policy, the zero tolerance enforcement policy for the ATF as it relates to basically FFL's misfiling paperwork. So in the past, if you were an FFL, which is a federal firearm license dealer, right? So someone who buys and sells guns, if you, as an FFL, misfiled a piece of paperwork, forgot to file something on time, any violation whatsoever, your license was revoked, you couldn't get it back. And that policy change led to a dramatic spike in FFLs, and especially in FFLs losing their licenses. And especially the smaller FFLs found that to be an insane burden, right? I can mess up one tiny thing and my entire business is done. Every employee I have, they can't feed their families, I can't feed their families. It's a big, big problem. And that was a big problem. And she repealed that. That's an incredible thing. And the next one she did, and I think this is a really pro-2A one, is she helped create the framework for rights restoration. Now, this hasn't fully gone into effect, and I'm not going to, I'm never going to lie to you, I'm never going to pretend. So you can put a little caveat beside this, but she's shown all intent and has been, begun to put in place, there's some legal things being worked out at the moment, but a restoration system from rights. So basically what she did was, for nonviolent felons, that is. So basically what she did was she took that power from the ATF to stop people who were felons or nonviolent or otherwise. She took the power from the ATF to regulate that and took it in herself. And she gets the final word now on that. And that's absolutely good. There's no reason Martha Stewart shouldn't be able to carry a gun. There's no reason someone who lies on a welfare form shouldn't be able to carry a gun. They're not in danger to themselves or others. They shouldn't lose their ability to have free speech just because they put down the wrong income amount on a mortgage or on a welfare application form. So that's great. Those two things are great. But now we're getting to the big one. And this has been news in the last week, and I think this really substantiates a lot of my argument. Okay. So obviously up there in Illinois, we had assault weapons and large capacity magazine bans. Obviously, you and I, assault weapons are just AR-15s and very common rifles, and large capacity magazines are just normal capacity magazines. I think it's like 10 rounds is like a large capacity magazine. So for the first time ever, in that argument, she filed on behalf of the DOJ a pro-2A amicus brief. And I know that sounds nerdy and I know that sounds geeky, but the reality is the significance of that cannot be cannot be overstated. For the first time ever, the U.S. government, the U.S. federal government, filed a brief to courts on behalf of us. And then she went a step further. She actually petitioned the court to allow a DOJ lawyer to argue on behalf of the plaintiffs. That's huge. That's huge. For the first time ever in the Second Amendment movement, we have a Department of Justice that actively shows that they want to argue on our behalf. And they have actually filed briefs on our behalf. And this is kind of the point of the video. I know it may seem that Pam Bondi is, from her rhetoric in the past and from her action in the past, a very anti-Second Amendment person. And to some degree she is. I mean, she's kind of on the line of a lot of those other Republicans at the time, like Senator John Cornyn and those kind of people who were pushing, anti-gun legislation. But I think you have to think of her more as a tool. She's the tool of whoever's in power. And right now, we do have a pro-2A administration. You could argue that with me. You can hate me for saying that, but it is just the case. It's just the case. And her actions since that time, since she's become Attorney General, have been nothing but pro-2A. Is it as fast as I want? No. No. Is it as strong as I want? No. No, of course not. But it is ostensibly pro-2A. Ostensibly pro-2A. And there's never been something like that. We just haven't had a real strong pro-2A Attorney General. And right now, the way she's being used, right, she's just a tool, the way she's being used is in that pro-2A capacity. And I don't think we can diminish that. So a lot of the times when we see a lot of that Pam Bondi hate, we have to understand she said some stuff that's a little yikesy in the past. She said some stuff that I would not have said. But at the bottom line, when the pedal hits the metal, a lot of the work she's done as Attorney General has been certainly not anti-gun and certainly pro-Second Amendment. The other point I think I need to bring up, and this is brief, but about a little bit about the speed, is that legal stuff does take a lot of time. A lot of these things are hundreds of pages long, and if you screw them up, they will just get tossed out by the court. This came up at a Four Boxes Diner video I was watching recently. But it's a good point. And one of the things, Mark Smith, who's the host of that channel, if you don't watch him, it's a great YouTube channel. But one of the things he was bringing up, and he's, of course, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, right? A very, very high-power lawyer. One of the things he was bringing up was how difficult a lot of these legal filings are and how the anti-gun judges are looking kind of for anything. So if you screw up even in a little way, they're going to toss the whole thing out. And so to a large degree, we need that time, right? It's going to be slow, and we kind of want it to be slow to some degree just to keep it, to make sure we actually get the change we want. So 100%, is it not what I want? No, of course not. Would I be a lot more aggressive? Yes, I would be. But is Pam Bondi a pro-2A Attorney General? Yes. Yes, she is. I'd be very interested to hear what you guys think, though. Can you please argue with me in the comments? I'd really like to know. I try to respond to all of them. So I really do appreciate that. Very small channel. So if you are new here, please do subscribe. Really appreciate all you have subscribed so far. Hope you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.